Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
To the social media derby. We've got a great episode this week touching on England. Obviously it's been a bit of a controversial week for England national team at the Euros. We'll also touch on some transfer news for both Man U and Arsenal, a couple of targets looking like they're going to be missed out on, and some new targets as well on the Arsenal side. But before we get into today's episode, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can, drop your comments down below. All of the engagement is appreciated, and yeah, as you can see on TikTok and all of our social platforms, we reply pretty swiftly as well. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. Again, engagement is hugely appreciated. Before we get into this week's episode, how you doing, Jonty? You all right? It's bloody hot.
Not too bad, but it is very, very hot. Yeah, it's killing me, but can't complain because I'm always usually complaining about it being too cold or too dark. So yeah, I've just got to take it on the chin, I guess.
That's the English approach, though, isn't it? Complain regardless, whether it's hot, cold. We'll get into the Euros chat in a bit because I think it applies to that as well. But yeah, we'll have a good old moan we do on these shores. But yeah, for context, in England, I think it's supposed to be 28 degrees Celsius today. So our summer's finally arrived. It's been a bit later than we have historically been used to, but yeah, I think this is the summer going forward, mid to late June until September-ish time. But yeah, less enough of the weather report, David Fish and all that, or whatever his name was, Michael Fish. Let's get into the transfer news then. We'll start off with United. We'll start off with my club because I think that's where the big kind of movements were. So we've been heavily linked with Michael Olise pretty much since last season. Back in the last season, like still during the season, we were linked heavily with him. Seemed like he was Ineos's big kind of one of their big targets. And this has come as a bit of a surprise because I think most United fans were expecting him to either come to us or go to Chelsea. That looked like the two options that were on the table. Recent weeks, we've heard a little bit about Newcastle, which don't know how they're going to pull that off with their PSR stuff, but they've been linked, as well as Bayern Munich. And big shout out to the Athletics' David Ornstein, because he dropped 2 bombers in the space of like about 20 minutes. So he's like, first of all, Chelsea have pulled out of the race, which kind of shocked us all. And then said, Bayern, Newcastle was still sniffing around and United haven't given up either. And then about 9 or 10 minutes later, he drops the second bomber and he goes, yeah, Olise has agreed to join Bayern. And basically, I don't know, does Ornstein have a phrase? He doesn't really have a phrase. He just has those like siren lights, doesn't he? That he normally does on his posts. But he did his version of the Fabrizio, here we go. And Olise has apparently joined Bayern. So yeah, from a United fan perspective, it's obviously disappointing because I think, we all rate him as a player. He absolutely tore us apart in that game at Selhurst Park, back end of the season. And he looks like a really, really top talent. As we've mentioned before, a bit of a strange individual. Some of his interviews and celebrations have been slightly unorthodox. But I kind of wanted that at my club. We needed some weirdos up in there to kind of, shake things up a bit. But yeah, we won't be getting him. And he'll be leaving the Premier League altogether. So I'm quite surprised, man, to be honest. I'm not like, it's not an absolute shock because Bayern do this every now and again. They have pulled in power. I saw their wage list. They pay players quite handsomely. So, it's not a shock at all. I guess the shock is only that, he didn't stay in the Premier League because I guess, we kind of expected him to do that. he's had his his famous Snapchat or Instagram messages leak where he was talking about heading to the top and going to the Premier League when he was Chirps and the Babes. But nah, he's going to Bundesliga. So yeah, surprised, disappointed, and it's going to sound like me covering my backside right now. But the only thing I will say is I would probably be sadder if it was in one of our more priority positions like centre back or midfield, where I think it's quite obvious we've got gaping holes there. Although I would say right wing probably, is close behind those two positions. I would say those two are the top ones. So it's sad and disappointing, but I don't think it's the end of the world for us. And I think if it's based on, I know it's all PR games when someone snubs clubs. Chelsea have said, oh, it's wage stuff. He was asking for too much. United have said, he's been asking for too much. It's probably not that. We probably were willing to pay that money and he's chosen Bayern for some other reason. But yeah, what do you think, John? Do you think it's a big blow for us, or do you agree with me and think we've got bigger fish to fry, as Robbie says?
I think it's the idea of going after him in the first place was kind of more opportunistic from my point of view, right? He was a player that was really good, that was available, but not necessarily in a position that you really need to prioritize at this point, right? You spent quite a lot of money in these positions and you have quite a large wage bill in these positions where you'd hope you'd be able to get something out of the players that you're paying quite a lot of money for and the ones that you've purchased for quite a lot of money. So from my point of view, he was always more of an opportunistic buy from your perspective. And from his perspective, I think it was time to move on from Crystal Palace. So for you guys, I don't think it's a massive blow, particularly the fact that he's not going to another Premier League club, right? If he was going to somebody else that you were going to be competing with, then obviously that is somewhat of a blow. But the fact that he's just leaving the league altogether probably softens it slightly. I think in the end, it will work out to be probably the right thing for you guys, because it was going to be a lot of money that you were going to have to pay to get him. And that would have been a large proportion of your transfer budget available. And it would have probably prohibited you from going and getting the positions that you really need, which are a centre-back, right? Probably a couple of other positions, but I think centre-back, centre midfield are really the key ones. I know you've been linked to strikers too, but let's be honest, like Højlund can do the job on his own. He seems to be relatively fit and healthy, apart from obviously when he first came to United and had the injury. So I think you could probably get by without another striker. So overall, I think it's probably good for you in the end. And for him, I think it's the smartest decision to make, because let's be honest, Man United and Chelsea on the table, I think if I had to choose between the three of them, Man United, Chelsea, and then Bayern Munich, I think Bayern Munich is the guarantee of Champions League football. It's the guarantee of getting some sort of trophy in the next few years, despite obviously their lack of success this year. But I think from his point of view, it's probably a smarter decision, right? And we all have to remember that he doesn't play for England, right? As much as he seems English and, he's got links to England, he is French and he is welcome to go to other countries. And maybe we, as a nation, need to realize that actually the Premier League, while it is exciting and while the most money is in it, there are still clubs and countries out there that are interesting for players in this league to go to. So I think all round is a smart move for him. He's still young. If he does well for Bayern, if he ever wants to come back to one of the kind of more, let's say, more guaranteed clubs in the Premier League, like a Man City or something like that, I think the door's still theoretically open for that in the future as well. So I think, I'm not saying that Bayern's a stepping stone for him, but I think it's a smart move for him, right? He goes to a proven club that's going to win stuff. He gets to go and, link up with one of the best strikers in the world. All round, it makes sense for both parties, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Bayern, like you said, a key point that I guess I've missed earlier as well is just, the allure of Champions League football. Let's be real. If he's going from a mid-table Premier League team to a Man United and Chelsea, he's not getting that. I mean, he's getting an upgrade to a certain extent because he's getting, they're much bigger clubs, obviously. We are playing other European competition as well, which I don't know if he's entered before with Palace. Obviously, I don't think they've been in Europe since he's been there. So it is an upgrade to a certain extent, but it's obvious that the Bayern move is the one where it's more it looks more attractive. You're going to go to a new country. There's a bunch of French players at Bayern already. They're in the Champions League, and I'm sure the pay packet's huge. So I get it. I selfishly, I would have chosen United, obviously, but I'm a fan. And obviously, there's all those rumours that come out every time you're linked with a player. Oh, he's a boy hit this fan, he's a boy hit that fan. But ultimately, I think he's made the right decision, and his advisors have probably pointed him in the right direction. The only thing I would say is, I don't know if this helps him. I don't know if this helps him in the future to get a big move back to the Premier League, because I think leaving Bayern can be quite hard. You're seeing what's happening to Alphonso Davies right now. He wants to go to Real Madrid, and it's a bit of a death row contract kind of situation at Bayern. It's not always that easy to be able to leave and go somewhere else once you're there. If you do, 9 times out of 10, it's because you've had to run down your contract. If you look at Alaba, if you look at a couple of other players that have left Bayern, then you see that they pretty much they sucker you in and they offer you a big packet, and then they, if you want to get an upgrade or you want to get a contract boost with more money, they often kind of really hardball you, and then if you want to leave, they make you stay right until the last day of your contract before you can go. They're not worried about losing people on free. So the only thing I would say is if he does have a long-term view to get back to the Premier League or one of the big Spanish clubs or something like that, it's probably going to be a bit tricky from Bayern. They're not normally the most amenable for that kind of next step if you want to take it. And I think rightfully so. They look at themselves as the creme de la creme, and they're like, why would you want to go somewhere else? But yeah,
I think it's more from the perspective that I mean he's more of his age, right? He's in, there's certain periods in your life where your next contract is going to eat up a certain amount of your prime, and then the one after that is going to be, like in basketball, they know it's their last big contract to get. For him, he's 22. Let's say Bayern put him on a 4 or 5 year deal, right? By the time he comes out of that, if he does end up wanting to run it down, right, he's 27. He's still got time at the end of that primed. to go somewhere else to be in his prime. So I think more from that perspective, obviously, Bayern make it difficult if you get into like 2 years within the end of your deal and you're not signing a new one. They're either not going to play you, or they're going to make life pretty difficult for you. Try and sell you off to somebody else in the meantime, not play you at all. So it's not an easy one to get out of. I just mean more in that, like, he has the opportunity to do something after this, right? This isn't the with the Harry Kane, it's kind of the ceiling of his fate, even though everyone thinks that he's still got a chance to come back to the Premier League afterwards. I mean, when you're that age, it's a lot different.
He'll come back like Bale did. He'll come back like Bale did when he's completely washed, and he might score a few goals and it'll be romantic for Spurs or whatever, but they'll do nothing. Whereas with I hear you completely. With Olise, that logic completely applies. Let's just hope it goes well for him, because I quite like him. I want him to do well, and Bayern they're in the mud too, but their mud is different than our mud. Chelsea and United's mud is real Amazon jungle mud, that thick mud that sticks on you for a long time. They're just some nice little British countryside mud that you can clean off nice and easily. So I think they'll probably be top of the table again by the end of next season, and they would have burst Leverkusen's bubble. But yeah, who knows? The other player we've been linked with is again Joshua Zirkzee. It's looking like it's progressing. It looks like our hijack of this deal is moving along quite nicely, and it looks like we're kind of in pole position now and have overtaken AC Milan when it comes to this deal. I mean, it does go against what we've just talked about, priority positions being centre back, centre midfield. I would probably agree, though, that maybe striker and right wing are the next position after that, and they've obviously, by the looks of this deal, prioritised the striker over the right wing position. And I'm not mad at it. I think Zirkzee looks like a decent player. I've had a chance in these last few weeks where we've kind of been more and more linked to him, and it looks like the deal's going to happen. Looks more likely to look at some of his comps and look at some of his highlights and stuff, and he looks like a decent player. What I would say is, obviously, that's like a completely small view of him as a player and not completely reflective. But the thing I have noticed, or it looks like anyway, from those comps and highlights, is he's not like an out and out striker who is like a gunman. He's not like that player that, you give him a chance in the box, he's gonna take it. He actually reminds me a lot, and bear with me, reminds me a lot of like the kind of style that Martial plays with, where he's ball to feet, link, give and go. He's actually quite unselfish for a striker. His assist rate stats are decent for a front man. So I think it looks like they're going for a similar kind of like for like, getting someone else to offer a different style of play to Højlund, but similar to what maybe Martial was offering before. Obviously, you've got to hope that he stays fit, because that was, I think, Martial's biggest issue, was the fact he was just always on the medical table and never in the squads. But yeah, that looks like that's going to happen, I think, in the next couple of weeks. It's progressing that way, so I wouldn't be mad at it. I'd say get another striker in. It won't eat up all of the budget that we've got, and you'd still have a bit of money to play with, and then you've obviously got to sell, which I think they're trying to do anyway. Greenwood, Sancho, Palestri, whoever else is earmarked to bring in some cash to fund other moves. But I'm not mad at that at all, and I think it makes complete sense. Let's hope we get it over the line and we have one signing in the bag, so we can concentrate on what looks like trickier deals, because the centre-back one looks absolutely mad. We're linked with all types of different people. The Branthwaite one looks like it's going to be, a Maguire Mark II. They're looking for huge money, so that's going to be tricky. And the centre midfield links are still heavily around João Neves. So if you want João Neves, Benfica are not easy to deal with either, and that's a huge fee. So I think if you just get this one across the line, it might be kind of like what we talked about last year when we had Dom on the pod, and we're talking about the Mount deal and whether it was the highest priority in terms of what we needed. And Dom's point around maybe it was just the easier deal to get done, so they got it done first. And I feel like the Xerxes one probably has a similar ring to it, because there's a release clause. They're just like, as soon as we agree personal terms, we can just deposit the money and we've got him. And we don't have to bother with any of the negotiation back and forth. So yeah, that's my two pennies. I don't know, John, you kind of alluded to maybe the striker not being super high up on the list. Do you think we're wasting the budget on him, or what
it wouldn't be high up on the list for me, is my point. I just think that you've got enough to hold you over for another season until you can get more budget, hopefully, and buy somebody else, right? So from my point of view, it just doesn't seem like it should be the priority. And also, I mean, Xerxes maybe is, again, a bit of opportunism, right? They see that there's a guy available, someone else is going to go and get him. He's got a low release clause and they're just going to go and get him now. But that obviously, from my point of view, that shows that they must be relatively confident that they're not going to need that extra budget to try and get something else over the line in the centre-back or centre-mid position, right? Because...
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
What I'm assuming they've done is like allocated each part of their budget for, this position, this position, and this position. And they must be relatively confident that the budget that they've already allocated for a centre-back position is going to be enough to get them what they need. That's the point. That's the part that I'm a little bit less certain of. I don't know if the amount of money that you're willing to spend on a centre-back is actually going to be enough to get you somebody of the quality that you actually want. So that's where I would be like, you know what, let's hold off on Xerxes. Let's try and figure out, maybe we need to reallocate some money from the kind of striker position back into the centre back so that we can really get something over the line quickly in terms of a Branthwaite or somebody else. So that's probably just the difference in knowledge. They probably have a lot more, they definitely have a lot more information than me. And they obviously must have some sort of confidence that they're going to be able to get a centre back, off their shortlist for the price that they're willing to pay. It just seems from the outside to me that it's a lot less certain than that. But I don't think he's a bad player. He looks like he's pretty handy. He looks like he could do the job. But if you end up only getting Xerxes and there's nobody else that you end up signing by the end of the transfer window, I would consider that to be a failure of a transfer window.
No, 100%. I agree with that completely. But I think there's zero chance of that happening. I think this also could be a negotiation tactic if you think about it. If you buy another player, then logically other clubs would accept or maybe believe you more if you say our budget, is this amount and we don't have more money, we've obviously bought someone else, so this is what we've got. And I think they're trying that with Everton, but obviously without a signing through the door, Everton are like, nah, mate, give us 60 or 70 million for Branthwaite. That's what we want. And we're coming in lowballing with 35 or 40 or whatever.
It's a risky strategy, though.
Yeah, it is, but I agree with it, man. I would rather us buy 4 or 5 players, and you guys have kind of taken this strategy, and a lot of clubs that have gone in rebuilds, if you look at them, unless you're Man City, when they've done a successful rebuild, they've gone out and bought players in the 30 to 40 million range. Right, Liverpool did it initially with like their kind of early days Klopp era. Everyone they were buying was within that range, and they all turned out to be they had almost an 80%, 90% success rate with their signings. You guys recently with your rebuild, a lot of the top players you brought in before the Rice last summer were all in that range, 30 to 50 million odd, and they've all proven to be really useful players for you. So I'm not mad at it, and if that's the process we're going and we're trying to take, and the approach we're trying to take with Xerxes, and then if we get a centre back within that range, then I'm fine with that. Obviously, I think the Neves one makes it impossible because I think there's no chance that happens that way. But with the centre back, I think Euro's been linked at 50 million euros. That's what, like, within that range, right? I don't think we'll get him, by the way, but I'm just saying the targets that have been linked with, apart from Branthwaite, are in that range. We can sort out the Todibo red tape. He'd be in that range. The other centre-back options out there that we've been linked with would probably be within that range. So I'm happy with it. Obviously, it is risky, like you said. It is like quite a different approach to transfers for us. But I'm not mad at it. And if we get Xerxes, if we get a centre-back that I've just mentioned, doesn't have to be Branthwaite, and we get a midfielder that, is of a similar ilk, then I'd be happy, bro. I'm not that bothered about these brand names of big transfer fees. I just want players within that range, and if they've got the right profile, which Xerxes, Todibo, if we got a Fofana or someone else in midfield, they're all in that range. 22 to 24,
it just means that
right price.
It just means that the players that you buy in this window are going to be a little less proven, probably a little further away from their prime. And I think, as you say, that is probably the right thing to do from a rebuild perspective, whether it's something that your fans as a whole will accept, because obviously there's being linked with Olise, right? Olise is a brand name, right? You guys think you deserve to get him, and he was somebody that really excited the fan base. I'm sorry to say, if you're going to go for Xerxes and get him for however many million, and then have less budget allocated towards centre back and centre mid, I think all of your fans have got to realise that you're going to get some real no-namers. Not necessarily no-namers, you're going to get some people that aren't top tier, wonder kids on FM, etc.
Yeah,
you're going to have to settle for some names that you never heard of before, at least from the mainstream fan base. So I think overall that's a good strategy, just whether you guys can actually stomach it and stomach the fact that as a result of that, you're probably not going to be challenging too much or going crazy next season. I think if you can accept all of that, then that's the right way to go. That is what the rebuild looks like for the first couple of years. You are buying a lot of people far from their prime, trying to develop them to get them closer to their prime, and then slowly build up to hopefully a culmination in, what Arsenal are trying to do and failing at for the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, but that's the right track. And
no, that is the right track. It's just the track that people can't accept when you're a fan of a club that is so successful over the years. It's very difficult to accept the fact that you have to rebuild just the same way as everybody else does. You can't shortcut or skip to the front of the line and just start winning things again. And I think that's what the expectation has been with Ten Hag, with a lot of stuff, right? The expectation was still, we need to go and win stuff. So if you're finally going to buckle down and realize it ain't that easy and you've got to rebuild just like everyone else, then these are the right signings to make.
Yeah, I think this season is that, though. And that's the only reason why I say this trajectory, this 8th is literally the Arteta 8th. Not the first one, because you came halfway through the season.
Which one?
It was unreasonable. not the first one, because that was like half a season, right? Or no, you're a bit more than half, 60% of the season. You won the FA Cup, came 8th, but it was like clearly none of the players he wanted. Second season was the real rough 8th, where you got some of the players you wanted, but it was hard. We're either going to go the same trajectory, and that means this season with the new players that we're getting in, we'll still struggle and we'll have the 8th, 7th or whatever, 6th or whatever struggle season, or it's the, because this isn't Ten Hag coming in halfway through the season, or last season was that, right? So it's hard to judge. But I think United fans Obviously, there's some there that are going to be impatient, that want the brand names, like you say, probably a big proportion. But I think that the ones who are copped on know that this is completely the right way to go. And this is us hopefully coming out of the mire and getting these right players, building the squad. And there's no certainty that we have to go and struggle again this season. Because if you do look at your progress, and even Liverpool's, they came before you doing this kind of method, right? Like they went from the first couple of seasons of Klopp, where it was real struggle, similar to Arteta and now what Ten Hag's been going through, to top four, guaranteed. And then they went to challenging for the title. So their ascendance from struggle to top four was quicker than you guys. But then your ascendance from that position to challenging was quicker than them. They still stuck around the top four-ish area, and then they started to challenge afterwards regularly, whereas you went like fast track. You went from fifth to second real quick, challenge. So I'd be happy with either of those, mate. I'd be happy if we got top four next season. I'd be happy if we just missed out top four, but we showed progress. I'm cool with both of those versions, right? Obviously, it would be really hard if we had a really tough season again with doing the right things in the transfer market. But you know what? I'd have to stomach that too. So I'm here for it, man. I don't mind missing out on these brand names. I don't mind missing out on players who 60, 70 million, proposed transfer fees and big wages to get the kind of profile that we've seen has been successful recently. So yeah, onwards and upwards with United. I'm hopeful, and yeah, I'm happy with the links we've had so far, and I'm not that heartbroken over Olise, although he's a class player. Let's get on to the Arsenal section. I think this will be pretty quick actually, because
I don't really want to talk about these ones too much.
Well, that's harsh to Nico Williams. I rate him. I think he's class.
No. But, I mean, in terms of the profile position, I guess.
Yeah, the links it's been slow, man. It's been slow for Arsenal. I don't know. I mean, that could be a good thing, to be honest. You don't want to be linked with everyone. That shows that you've got a lot of good players in your squad already, and you're looking for the last few pieces. But this past week or so, you've been linked with what you could say are two right wingers. I know Nico Williams has played left wing for Spain, but his position at Bilbao is right wing. So you've got Viktor Saigankov. Sorry, Ukrainians out there if I've screwed that one up. But he's a right winger for Girona, who came off a great season as well. Obviously top four into the Champions League. And he's played for Ukraine during the Euros. And then you've got Nico Williams, who I just mentioned, who's playing left wing for Spain, with Lamine Yamal playing right wing. But plays right wing for Bilbao. So I guess, Johns, unless the master plan is to shift these guys over to the left wing, which again would kind of screw over one of your star boys in Martinelli, or he'd play right wing and push Saka to the left wing. What do you make of these rumours, and are you comfortable with those positions that they might take up, or are you a bit worried?
Not really worried. I'll be honest with you that I disagree a little bit about Nico Williams. I know that maybe he plays right wing more frequently for Bilbao, but he's right-footed. And in today's day and age, if you're right-footed, you play left wing. And I think for Spain, he's playing left wing and absolutely cooking people. And it would be a similar kind of situation to what we've got with Saka on the right wing. So I kind of see Nico Williams, if we're going to buy him, I think we're not buying him for the right wing position. We're buying him for the left wing position, with the possibility of playing right wing if he absolutely has to, to help lighten the burden on Saka. Tagankov is different though, because Tagankov is left-footed, and I don't think we're going to go for that old school left foot on the left wing type of vibe. So from my point of view, it seems to be reinforcing the whole idea that at the end of the day, Arsenal aren't going crazy over getting a striker. There were some rumours that came out before that if we don't get a striker, it's not a big deal because we think we've got the one in Kai Havertz, which still obviously worries me because I don't trust that. I don't think Kai Havertz is prolific enough. I do think he is a very unique profile that does actually end up playing a key role in the way that we can play against some big teams and how we can do well against some certain teams in the way that they set up against us. I do think that he is crucial to that, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the thing that gets us over the line to win the title. So, if we're thinking that the left wing position, I'm gonna say the left wing position or not the right wing position. If we think that the left wing position is the key to getting us over the line next year, I'm a little bit worried because, Martinelli wasn't great. and obviously got switched out for Trossard. But Trossard ended up cooking at the end of the season, and I think we ended up still not coming first. So from my point of view, the reason why we didn't come first is because we weren't able, beginning and middle of the season, to put away enough of the chances that we had. If we look at the games where we weren't able to deliver, the draws and the losses against some mid-table teams, I don't think it was because of the left wing position. I think it was a combination of not being able to put away chances. The Nketiahs skying ones over the bar, etc., etc. And that's where I think the clinical striker is the key to us getting ahead next season, right? So yeah, these ones are confusing for me. Like if we were prioritizing a striker and we'd already got a striker over the line, then I think these would be good additions to the team. I think particularly Nico Williams would be a great addition to the team based off his age and the way that he's been cooking for Spain so far. So it's just the timing of it all. If this is going to be the first purchase of the window, I mean, Tsigankov we can probably get cheaper, but I don't know if we're going to get Nico Williams cheap, especially based off of the performances that he's putting in the Euros. We know what happens when a player cooks at any kind of international tournament. Look at Enzo, right? Suddenly they turn into the best player in the world, and you have to pay 120 million for him. So I don't know if that's the right option to go for as our first signing, because we're gonna have to pay like 80, 90 million plus, I reckon, for
Nah, he's got a release clause. You have to remember.
How much is it?
All players in Spain, it's a La Liga rule. Every player has to insert a release clause into their contracts. Every single one. That's the reason
I get
why
that, but surely his
Barca
is going to be 60 million.
That's reasonable.
Plus.
Yeah,
Really?
it's actually like 58 million something or something like that. The issue with
that's okay with me,
him,
but that would use up quite a lot. That would still use up quite a lot of our budget, right? Because we spent quite a lot last season. So unless we're selling
nothing.
Ramsdale for 50 million, I don't know how we're doing all this, man.
No, that's not happening. But it is a good chunk of change, but it's not like disastrous amounts that you would be like up in arms. The issue with him is because Bilbao don't have any foreign players, and the way that their club is set up and the rules that they impose on themselves, really, without getting any non-Basque players, what they do is they give obscene wages to the top class Basque players that they keep there, to help kind of sweeten it so they don't want to leave the club. So I think he's on a crazy wage packet. That's what I read anyway. So I think it probably wouldn't be the release clause that would be nuts. It would be the whole package, because you probably have to give him a mad salary to entice him away. But yeah, he's the more attractive of the two, like you said, because he's right-footed, because he's got a bit more versatility about him than I think Tsigankov has. He could cover the left wing. It's just whether or not. I mean, it's kind of admission that you're kind of giving up on Martinelli if you do get him, because I don't see this meaning that Trossard's going to get shipped off. I think Trossard is still going to stay around as a rotation player, because he's good at doing that, and he can come in and step in when your kind of main left winger or strikers even not performing. So it's it would just be a bit of bad news for Martinelli, which I think would be sad, because I know he had a struggle season, but it wasn't abysmal, and I feel like you got to give him a bit of a chance, because the same way I think United fans have gotten onto Rashford recently, I think it's because he's older and he's had now 2 of those seasons where he's had a bit of a stinker, that I think the fans get onto him. Martinelli hasn't though. This is his first season where he's struggled, and you've got to stick by him, and he's a bit younger as well. So if I was an Arsenal fan, as much as I like Nico Williams or anyone else that you might get in the left wing, I'd be a bit sad if you did fill that position, because I still believe that Martinelli can be a top player, and the future of your wings should still be Martinelli and Saka going forward. And like you said, strikers a bigger position to concentrate on in my mind, or even a 6 would be a bigger priority if I was Arsenal, or an Arsenal fan. But
yeah,
alas, I am not. Okay, I feel like transfer season, I know it's the window's open, but because of the Euros, it's kind of been a bit of a damp squib. Yeah, it's been a bit dry, unless you're Chelsea, who's still trying to buy bloody everyone under the sun and everyone they could they've heard of on FM. Every other club's kind of out here just testing the waters and really haven't kicked off, I guess, their big work for the transfer window yet. So we'll wrap that section up here. Let's get into the Euros part then, Jonts. England play their second game of the tournament against Denmark. When was it again? Was it Thursday or Wednesday? One of those days. Either way, it wasn't the greatest match in the world. It ended Denmark 1, England 1.
Jewelry can say many things on your wedding day. As a wedding band, it can say, "This is a forever symbol of our forever love." As a gift to your wedding party, it can say, "Thanks for standing up there with us." Blue Nile can help you find the piece that says it all and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com.
Huge fuss has been made over that performance, and there's been a bit of back and forth between the players and the media and stuff. But yeah, the game wasn't the greatest. Kane opened the scoring with a decent finish, to be honest. Walker managed to nick the ball off, I think it was Christensen, the Denmark left back, and then he got a bit fortunate with his cross and it bobbled to Kane and he tucked it away. But as predicted, and it's probably the only thing I think I completely agree with the media on, England dropped deep almost immediately and didn't pose any threat after that goal. And then I think it was, near the end of the first half, Kane gives the ball away carelessly. I don't even know what he was trying to do. He's trying to do a cross-field pinger on the ground. And Hjulmand cut it off and just absolutely slapped one in the bottom bins to make it 1-1. And to be honest, bro, I can't remember another thing about that game after that. It was pretty boring. Not a huge amount of chances. I think Pickford had to make a few routine saves. Their goalie, Kasper Schmeichel, had to make a few routine saves, but nothing, noteworthy happened after that, and it ended 1-1. Not too many good performances. The only person I've heard who's come out with any kind of plaudits was Gehi. Again, 2 good performances in a row. I think he made one kind of cock up in the second half, but he recovered almost immediately and saved the day. So I think that would be harsh to kind of mark him down with. He was probably the only player who played well. The big hitters, though, Jude. I think Foden was a bit better, but I would still include him on that. I don't know what your opinion is in a minute. I'll ask you. Declan Rice didn't have the greatest game. I think Kane, if you took away his goal, struggled. A lot of our Saka was a bit quieter than the last game, but I don't think he was terrible. The Trent experiment continued. Yeah, it was a rough one. What's your opinion first on those players and stuff? And are you now getting a bit more worried about this second disappointing performance by England?
Yeah, I think you recapped it really well. It was just it's a game that I didn't enjoy watching. Right, even if I wasn't English and I had absolutely no skin in the game, it still would have been an absolute stinker to watch. And I think it was mainly because of the fact that, the way that we set up against teams and the way that teams set up against us, it just ends up being somewhat of like a stalemate. And really, there's no major excitement. It's not like two teams absolutely going at each other. I'm thinking of like the Romania game a couple of days ago as well, where they were just absolutely going at each other the whole time. Like, there's nothing like that. It's not interesting to watch. It's completely dull. It's everything you'd expect Southgate to put out in the field when you listen to an interview for him, right? We are the football embodiment of Southgate's personality, I guess. And I think, Guehi had a good game as usual. I think he's a solid player. He's got all of the physical capabilities to, as you say, kind of make up for certain mistakes he might make. I think he is dealing with the pressure really well. I've got to say, he's dealt with the pressure unbelievably. I've seen some interviews of him. He seems like a really good guy, and he seems quite quiet as well. So he just seems like he's getting his head down and playing the game. And I think it's kind of shown to all of us, maybe the defense ain't the place that we need to be worried about, right? We don't need the big names necessarily to be a good defense. It's the other parts of the field where I'm more worried, right? Where we've got all of these crazy names, saying that we've got the best player in Italy, Spain, Germany, and England, right? Like, it's those positions that I'm more worried about. And I think Bellingham was leggy. I don't blame him, right? He
was doing too much, man. He's
doing too much. And I think he's also playing in that kind of naive young person style where it's like, oh, I don't care what my body's saying to me or how I'm feeling. I'm just going to go at it the whole time. And I think he kind of saw that he was still trying so much. And I think he wasn't necessarily managing his fatigue as well as he could have. But I also put that down partly to Southgate in putting him in a 10 position, which is a really, it's a busy position. You've got to be doing stuff all the time and really supporting a lot of the attacking that we do. So I don't completely blame him. And obviously the first game ended up being the match winner for us. So I'm not going to blame him too much, but it wasn't a great performance from him. I think Rice was stinky. Honestly, I've got to say that I feel like when I look at Rice next to Trent, I feel like he just doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. Like, what kind of player am I supposed to be? It almost looks like, am I supposed to be the defensive guy? Am I supposed to be doing the things that Trent's trying to do and failing at? Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? And that, to me, is the exact opposite of what I can kind of see from him at Arsenal. I feel like he's very clear on what his role is supposed to be, even if it's changing game to game. I think Arteta's pretty clear with him, like, this is what I expect of you this game, this is what I expect of you next game, etc. So he kind of does the job, right? And I think when you try and make Rice do everything, he's not that kind of player. He ends up looking like Gallagher, where he's just like running all over the pitch doing nothing. So I think, I don't fully blame Rice, but he had a stinker. I think Kane does what he does, which is, if you give him a chance, even if he's having the worst game of his life, he's going to get it on target and he's probably going to put it away. But outside of that, he's useless. Like, he was absolutely useless in that last game. And the fact that Southgate took his captain off at, was it 70th minute or whatever it was, to bring on Watkins.
Even earlier, I think.
Yeah, maybe even earlier, right? To bring on Watkins, it shows, you know what? Kane did not have a great game, because you'd think he's the first name on a team sheet and he's, no matter how bad he's doing, he's going to stay on that pitch the whole time. But the fact that Southgate took him off, I think, is a sign that he's not happy with what he was presenting and what he was offering in that game. So all of them, I think, were not good. I'm going to say Foden. I think Foden showed why he should be in a 10, because I know that you said that there weren't a lot of big chances, but he hit the bar. He hit the post. He came inside, grabbed the ball, slapped one across the floor, hit the post, and then I can't remember who it came to. Can't remember if it was Saka or somebody else. Yeah, Saka came to it, and I think that he was challenged and it went flying over the bar. But like, that was probably the best chance I saw really in that second half from us, and it all came from Foden being in the, picking up the ball in the central position, and actually kind of further on the right hand side, cutting inside closer to the centre and then slapping one. So, clearly Foden as a left winger doesn't work the same way Trent as a centre mid does not work. But I can see the what Foden can offer just from that one chance alone. So I'm not going to put Foden in with them. I think Saka also, I think he's doing what he can do. He could be a little bit more clinical here and there. It definitely wasn't a good performance, but I wouldn't put him in the absolute stinker category for that performance against Denmark. So yeah, I think, also to be a bit more positive, I think Trippier continues to be all right in that left back position. I was worried a lot more about him in that position, and he doesn't seem to be as bad as I expected him to be there, especially because he's been woeful for his club this season. And then also I've got to say Watkins looked really good coming on. Watkins looked really, really lively, playing off the back of the last defender. He's really good, man, and he was pressing hard, doing all the things that Kane can't really do in his older age now, and I think it showed. Watkins might be the way forward in certain games, which sounds ridiculous to say based off of how good Kane is, but man, styles make fights. And I think people need to realize that just because you're a world-class player in a certain type of role, if there's no need for that role, you've got to ride bench. And I think, I'm not saying that Kane has to ride bench now, but if we're playing against that kind of team and we need somebody to be hanging off the back of the last defender, Watkins is the guy for that, man. So yeah, it was a woeful performance, and obviously there's been a lot of stuff now said from Kane, from Rice even, I saw as well. Like, there's a lot of stuff coming out now kind of off the back of that. And it seems like the tournament might start to implode for us based off of what's been said in the media now.
Yeah, let's get into that in a minute. But I definitely agree with you on everything you said. Like, I think, on reflection, maybe Foden was a bit better than my kind of initial memory of the game. But I agree with you. I think a bit of an issue that people aren't talking about massively is that I don't know if there's a need for a Kane type striker when you play a 10, because he's kind of like a hybrid 9 and 10. So either you got to tell him, go high, don't you dare drop deep, and play a Foden or Bellingham behind, or you don't play a 10. And you've got to play 2 8s with a 6 sitting deep and let Kane drop But then you've got to have runners. You've got to have those wingers running beyond Kane. And that was kind of like, it was kind of what Jose did with Kane at Tottenham, where he had Son running off him, who was the main guy. I can't really remember who else was running off him. I think it was maybe Lucas Moura or something like that as well, who ran off him. And then it can work. But they didn't have a 10. They had 2 8s and a 6. And I feel like it is the criticism. There are a few criticisms which we'll get into in a minute that are fair. And I think one of the criticisms I've heard is he's definitely trying to shoehorn players in because of some of the things you've said. And it's proving to be dysfunctional and it's not working clearly. To be honest, it's something that I've never really expected of Southgate. I've always expected Southgate to be, kind of go for players that he rates and work in a system that, I don't always agree with the system and I don't agree with the players that he's picked previously, but the evidence is it's worked better surely than this tournament. And I could even argue maybe a bit more even, the last World Cup where we lost in the quarters. So I think he's kind of folding under the pressure and the expectation from the public and the media to play these big name guys. And it's going against his better judgment, which, has always been to choose who he thinks fits better in a system. And even though we haven't won anything, he's kind of been more proven right than he's been proven wrong with our performances. So as much as I despise, I'm going to call him Nammer because I don't want to call him his name now because I think he's disgraced his English name. So I'm going to call him Southgate in Chinese. But he's got to think about how he wants his legacy to be remembered as England manager. And I think before it was divisive, but you would have very passionate people who defended him. And I think he's converting those people into disbelievers at the moment with how he's managing the team and some of the decisions he's making. But let's get into this media furore then that's happened. So just to recap it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, John, because I don't know if I've seen every single bit of what's been going on back and forth between the players and the pundits. But obviously in the UK, we've got a star-studded pundit lineup, both on BBC and ITV, of ex-England players and legends of England and their club teams and the Premier League and stuff. So you've got Ian Wright, Gary Neville on ITV. You've got Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, Rio Ferdinand, Michael Richards. I don't know if he really counts in that category, but he's one of the prominent pundits on BBC. And obviously everyone's been super, super negative, and pretty much almost immediately after the first game, even though England won 1-0, it's been predominantly criticism and critique of the team, Southgate, and the players. Like you mentioned earlier, Kane's been getting it big time, and I think we've never been used to that happening. He's kind of been the darling of English football and immune to it, but he's been getting it. Foden's been criticised. Bellingham went from being praised like over the top, I think, in the first game to now being criticised. Trent's been lambasted, which I think has been, I'm a United fan. I like sticking the knife in on Liverpool players, and I enjoy kicking Trent if I can, but it has probably been a bit over the top as well. So there's been a lot of criticism. I think Gary Lineker just bluntly described the performances and the team as shit on his podcast, which I think is what has led to has been the final straw with all of this. And then, as you said, Kane came out in an interview and said, that the players need to just remember that they were in their position before, and they've also struggled under the pressure and not managed to win anything in their generations as well. So to bear that in mind, and kind of, struck back at a lot of the pundits. And then, like you said, Declan Rice has also come out and said something along the same lines. What do you make of all of this? Do you think the pundits have gone over the top? Do you think the players are right to defend themselves? Or do you think all of this is just unnecessary rubbish that's probably just all harming our chances? What's your take on this?
I think we've definitely been over the top. I don't know if it's necessarily directly the pundits' fault, right? Because with the issue that we've got today is that there are so many things that are always on, and we end up seeing, one person comes out and says it was rubbish, another pundit listens to that and adds on to it, another one adds on to that, and you end up getting it from all directions, right? If you're bad, you're really, really bad, right? It gets blown over the top, and that tends to be the prevailing thought of pretty much everybody at the end of it. If you compare that back to the times of old, you had one, maybe two critical headlines, in actual newspapers that people would read, and that would be kind of all of the negative energy would be centered into that. Whereas now I feel like there's so much negative energy and it's distributed everywhere, where I actually agree with Kane that there is no way to avoid it, especially if you are, on those platforms as well, which most of the players are. So it's very difficult to avoid all of that and to say, I think Southgate even came out and said, "Oh, we can't be affected by it." I don't know who is not going to be affected by all of this, right? Like the greats of the game, the ones that are so mentally strong, are still affected by a lot of these things, right? In most cases, they just use it to their advantage and kind of it creates a chip on their shoulder. I don't know necessarily if we've got players like that in the England team. I think they just take things more personally and it ends up becoming, a detriment to their performance. So I do think it's been overblown. I definitely think, the Southgate way was don't play very well, but end up getting good results. And I think so far, the first game we got a good result, we won. The second game was not a great result, but we didn't lose at least, is what they're all trying to say, that we're still undefeated and whatever else. But at the end of the day, he's doing what he does. That is what Southgate does, right? We don't play well, but we get a win or we get a draw. So I think it's definitely been overdone. I think it's just...
I'm Victoria Cash. Thanks for calling the Lucky Land Hotline. If you feel like you do the same thing every day, press 1. If you're ready to have some serious fun for the chance to redeem some serious prizes, press 2. We heard you loud and clear. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com right now and play over 100 social casino-style games for free. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
It's a build-up from the kind of pundit and fan perspective that we've seen it so many times, and we're wondering when there's going to be some sort of change, and we're probably thinking, this looks a lot like what we did last time and we didn't win last time, so why hasn't he changed things? Why hasn't he improved? We've got such good players. Why can't he figure out another way to do this and for us to look, impeccable at all times? So I think it is harsh, but I don't think Kane or Rice should have come out and said what they said, because I don't think it's actually going to help. I think if they had come out after the tournament ended and said, you know what, you guys did not help us at all, and I'm sick of you lot saying all of this rubbish about us, I feel like that would have been okay, because at the end of it, like, it's not affecting the football in front of you. But I think to come out now when we're in the group stages still, with the third game on, coming up very, very soon, and none of the knockout stages being played yet, I think it's kind of sharpen the swords a bit more now, because now people are going to be like, all right, you want to come out and say that, I expect you to be a bit better now, and if you're not better, then you better believe I'm going to come out and like lambast you even more than I did last time. So I don't know if it was the right thing to do from Kane's point of view. Like, if it was just before the final even, I'd kind of understand it, because everyone could be like, you know what, oh, we're in a final, let's just support the lads. But it's like, mate, you're in the last game of the group stages still. Like, maybe just hold off on that message a little bit longer until you prove to them a little bit more that, we might not be playing well, but at least we're getting results. So I think it stinks from all sides, man. I feel like everybody should give them a break. I do think, I agree with Kane, right? Like, people like Lineker, Rooney, etc. should all understand, we couldn't do this. They can't do it. It seems like they can't do it either, but they've still been more successful than we were. So maybe we should just let them get on with it. But at the same time, that's not really how the media works, right? Media's always got to be saying something. And if the majority of the performance is not good, then they're obviously going to focus on that. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but it's just, I feel like if I'm a German fan or a France fan, I'm licking my lips thinking, you lot are already exploding amongst yourselves. I ain't got to worry about you lot at all.
I mean, I kind of, it's such a tricky one, because I do feel like the media, we always hammer the media on here, even though we're kind of alternative media, but like, non-conventional, untraditional media, but like modern media. But we have just a complete cycle that we rinse and repeat in this country when it comes to the team. We're either just completely negative and down on the team, or we expect the world from the team. And there is no balance or levity involved. It's always just those two extremes. Until Southgate got us going recently, we'd been the former. We'd been absolutely disgraced by the team, losing to Iceland, all kinds of, disgraceful results and performances, etc. And dramas and all kinds of stuff coming out of the team. And he kind of has definitely helped swing the pendulum completely the other direction. And I feel like in the last World Cup and this current Euros, the media expects now. But the problem is, with both extremes, there are huge pitfalls and problems. And generally, it always turns to negativity, even if it starts with positivity on this extreme. So everyone's expecting, but because of that expectation, we've lost, a lot of people in the media and the public have lost touch with reality. Like you just said, the way England have performed and the results have mirrored every single other tournament Southgate's been in with England. There's been no drop. There's been no change. Everything's gone the same way. Narrow win, draw potentially, and get through the group, which yesterday's results confirmed England are through the group now. It's just whether they finish top, second, or go as a best placed, third place team. So nothing's changed. I think, like I said, the change has come from our expectation, the media's expectation, and then they're the ones who've got the ability to voice concern and worries and whatever, and generally it's puppeted through the pundits on our broadcasters. And while I don't think their criticism has been completely unfair or unbased, I think a lot of it's based in truth and it's fair criticism in it's kind of in its origin. The timing's not needed. You won 1-0. It wasn't the greatest performance. Focus more on the positive. You drew 1-1. We've done that in every other tournament, and the evidence has proven that England have still managed to go on and get better in every tournament and go far. Worst result for Southgate's been quarter-final, and we were nip and tuck in that with France. So I feel kind of sick, and I want to throw up in my mouth that I'm defending them, but I actually do think it's been so over the top throughout this tournament that I kind of understand why I think they've all had it. They've had enough. But I do agree with you in that generally it would be the manager that would come out. You would picture a manager, a Klopp or a Pep, or back in the old days, a Wenger or Sir Alex or whatever, come out and clap back. The fact there's been two of the big players, I think it shows that it's really got to them. And they're feeling the way we've just said. They feel like it's just over the top and unnecessary, and they're looking at people being like, when we see you're teeth out, grinning, cheesing with us, creaming yourselves over our performances and going over the top, and now suddenly we're useless. Now suddenly Kane can't do anything. Now suddenly, all these players are not, like you just said, the best players in their leagues, which, everyone called out so many times before the tournament. So I understand why they've done it, but ultimately I also agree with you. I don't know if it's going to help. I don't know if it's going to unite everyone. I don't know if it's going to just make the pundits get more aggy with them. But, logic tells you it's probably not going to end with a good result. But the only thing I will say is, some teams have come back from these kind of situations and proven to still win or be successful. France generally are always going through some sort of big turmoil in their camp and, players not liking each other, mums fighting with dads, all kinds of drama, happening. Argentina obviously lost to Saudi in the first game of the World Cup, and I'm sure their press were all over them losing that game, and they managed to win, the World Cup itself. So it doesn't have to end in tears, but I think just looking at what we're used to as a country, it probably will. So let's see how it shapes up. We've obviously got the third game coming up today, and we'll get into that now. So let's move on from that and let's get into the preview section, John. So England against Slovenia. Like I just said a bit earlier, England have qualified now, so they're through. So I don't know how they'll approach this game, but yeah, and then you add in the context we've just talked about all the media drama. What do you think this game is going to look like? And give us your prediction.
It's a hard question, man. I really don't know at this point, because Slovenia, they've obviously got something to fight for, right? They've looked decent, yeah, but they've also got something to fight for, right? So they are not guaranteed to go through, I don't think. They need to win to ensure that they will definitely go through, right? They're on the same points, I think, as Denmark, so they need to get a win here, really, to guarantee that they're going through. England, obviously, are already guaranteed to go through regardless. Obviously, we'd probably want to finish up well and just win the group, but the level of jeopardy is not as high as for Slovenia. So I think there's probably going to be a bit more want from the Slovenia team, and it really depends on how our players react to all of this craziness going on in the media. I'm hoping that there'll be the resilient kind of Cristiano Ronaldo, I'm going to prove you wrong type of vibe and go out there and absolutely slap Slovenia off the park. But that historically hasn't really been our way of doing things. And I mean, outside of Bellingham, we don't really have those big defiant characters in our team that are going to be like, you know what, I'm going to show you lot what's what. So I'm a little worried from that perspective that we might kind of end this with a bit of a, like a very quiet purr as opposed to a
whimper.
roar. Yeah, a whimper, exactly. So I really don't know which way it's going to go, but I did back England before this tournament. I'm going to keep backing them. I'm going to do what Kane and Rice want us to do, which is I'm going to support them. So I'm going to say England are going to win 2-0. We're going to go out there. We're going to have a good performance. I think Southgate's going to start Gallagher instead of Trent, which is going to be a weird one, but I think overall we're going to end up just, having enough quality to beat Slovenia. So I'm going to go 2-0. I'm going to do what you said, Harold, and I'm going to support your team. All right, mate?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. It's an interesting game for so many reasons, just with England alone. But yeah, like you said, you add in the jeopardy that Slovenia face and that they've got to win basically to go through. It makes it a really interesting one, and it could go a couple of ways. Obviously, England could come out all guns blazing, but just you mentioning Conor Gallagher coming in for Trent makes me think we'll go more defensive than we will offensive. But that could not be true, because that could mean that Declan Rice will be given a bit more license and he'll be able to maraud forward, and that could help the team in other ways. So it's really hard to call on the England side how or if there will be a change. My judgment tells me there won't, and he's bringing in Gallagher to just make us a bit more solid, because at times against Denmark they had a lot of the ball and we weren't able to get it and hold it. I don't know how Gallagher's going to improve that massively, because I don't associate him with any of those traits, but who knows? Maybe that's a better fit to replace the gaping hole that's been left by Calvin Phillips, which we didn't talk about. So Southgate mentioning earlier. And I'm not making a fat joke about the gaping hole thing, all right? I'm not making that joke. I'm no place to make that joke about Fatburger. But what I will say is, I think this game's going to be much more exciting and interesting than the previous two that we've seen. And I feel like Slovenia are going to go for it. They've got quick, tasty, attacking, exciting forwards in their team. They've obviously got a really good goalie in Oblak. They've got the ingredients to make this a game that's a bit more exciting for the viewer and for the neutral. But I'm gonna do the same as you, John. So I'm gonna back the lads. I'm not gonna be like the Garys or Baldy Alan Shearer, who's just an absolute dour prat who's just sad and angry all the time. Just because his Magpies aren't going into Europe. Take that. But I'm going to say England are going to win 3-1. I think Slovenia are going to get a goal, because I think Pickford's also looked a little bit less assured, and people are kind of going over the top with how he's so class for England. I think he's so class for England because people don't test him that much. And at Everton, when he's tested a lot, generally he throws in a clanger every now and again. So I think Slovenia are going to score. Also, I think Sesko's looked really, really exciting. So I think he's probably going to be their scorer. But I think our attackers are going to step up. I think Kane's going to step up. I think Foden's going to step up. I think Bellingham will be more of himself and go back to, how exciting he was in the first game. Because I agree with you. I think mentality-wise, he's probably the only one I can name who's got that, who gives me the vibe that he's going to take this criticism and use it to fuel himself. So yeah, I'm going to go England 3-1, and I think that victory will get all of our pundits and our media flip-flopping right back to how great we are, and we're going to win the Euros. So I'm going to go 3-1 England, and top the group. I don't know who that means we're going to face. I've seen some of the mappings now because of a few teams have already qualified, but I think off the top of my head we were we were projected to meet someone like Italy, I think, in the quarterfinals if we topped our group, which was the expectation, I think. So I think now that Italy got through and everyone was expecting them, I think, to finish second, I think we're still on course to meet Italy in the quarterfinals. So, yeah, let's hope England can turn it around. And we've got, people outside getting on the pints and enjoying themselves after a positive result for England.
It looks like we'll play either the third place position from Group D or Group E. So it could be Austria.
And that won't be good. I don't like that one.
Or it could be like Slovakia or Belgium, depending on. Or I guess that Group E is everyone's on 3 points. So like that, I don't know who that could end up being, but I just really hope France end up winning their last game, so they don't. We don't end up having to play them. As long as it's not France, I'm happy. But yeah, it looks like we'll end up playing them, and then if we go through that, we'll play either Switzerland or Italy, which is not a horrible draw.
No, it's not a horrible draw. That part's not horrible. The one I don't like, obviously, France. As stinky as Belgium have been, I don't love the idea of playing Belgium because I think they can, they could.
Lukaku might turn into Lukaku. Yeah,
exactly. In a one-off game, and Austria should have been my dark horse. Yeah, pets are us. in this pod, you will have heard the sounds of both my pet and Johnson's pet in this episode. But yeah, no, I don't like the sound of Austria because I think I got my dark horse completely wrong. I went with Hungary, and I don't know if they're out already, but they certainly haven't looked great. And Austria have looked. That Ralphie Rangnick football has been looking really good so far. So I wouldn't love Austria. Obviously, you'd hope for Slovakia or one of those other teams instead. But yeah, let's see how it goes. I think we'll wrap the pod up there, Johns. I think our pets have given us the signal that we need to wrap it up. But yeah, hopefully a bit more of a positive bit of England coverage than some of the others that people will have seen in the UK this past week. And I think timing-wise, this will probably go out after the Slovenia games wrapped up. So let's hope by the time you guys are all watching or listening this, our predictions have come true and England have won. But if not, don't blame us. Cheers, Johns.
Cheers,
been a great pod. See you guys next week.
See you next week, mate.
Sports Social Podcast Network.